So there's a clip that has been getting passed around quite a lot online that is quite extraordinary. So we want to play it here. Put actually the second element, guys, up on the screen first. PBS is doing a little documentary of Dr. Fauci. I guess they followed him around for a while as part of their American Masters series. And as part of this documentary, where, again, they were following Fauci for a while with a camera crew, et cetera, and seeing what was happening. This was like in the height of the vaccine push. As part of this, they went to a historic Black neighborhood in Washington, D.C. It's Fauci and current Mayor Muriel Bowser. And they are trying to get people who are not yet vaccinated to go and get the jab. So I watched the whole clip that they've posted. Most of the interactions were very friendly. There were a lot of people who were like, oh, I already got it done. People were excited to see him or whatever. But one of the interactions did not go exactly as Dr. Fauci expected. Let's take a look.
People in America are not settled with the information that's been given to us right now. So I'm not going to be lining up taking a shot or a vaccination for something that wasn't clear in the first place. And then you all create a shot in miraculous time. It takes years to create vaccination.
Well, it used to take years.
Okay,
you know how many years were invested in this approach? About 20 years of science to get us to be able to do it.
20 years is not enough. And 9 months is definitely not enough for nobody to be taking no vaccination that you all came up with.
What are we going to do about those other states?
Oh, my God. They're going to keep the outbreak smoldering in the country. It's so crazy. I mean, they're not doing it because they say they don't want to do it. They're Republicans. They don't like to be told what to do. Right. And we got to break that, unpack that.
Well, I heard that it doesn't cure it, and it doesn't stop you from getting it.
No,
so
on the very, very, very rare chance that you do get it, even if you're vaccinated, you don't even feel sick. It's like you don't even know you got infected.
So the first interaction that we played that went on for some time, he had a lot of, and they just had to eventually be like, all right, you're obviously not going to get the vaccine. But there's actually a lot to unpack here. I mean, first of all, in that last interaction, what Fauci says is really not accurate.
No, it's just not accurate. It's literally not true.
It's just not true. Right? I mean, we all found out that, okay, the vaccine was very effective in preventing severe illness, and that is absolutely
especially
correct.
Amongst those who are immunocompromised and especially
elderly. Yes.
Right.
But it really didn't do a whole lot in terms of just keeping you from getting COVID, as we discovered, and the rest of the country discovered.
And he's telling that to a mom with her kids. That's actually what really galled me, Krystal. So that was that. The first guy also, Zed Jelani was talking about this. He was like, listen, whatever you think about the vaccine, that's not how you convince somebody. Whenever you're like, well, actually, it was 20 years of science. Now, look, maybe the man was unconvincible, but he was so arrogant in his presentation about the data, about the way that he was talking to that mother. Also, in that comment that he was making to Muriel Bowser about, these Republicans and their choice and all this, basically ridiculing them. So this was at the time, I believe this was in May of 2021. At that time, whenever President Biden was like, it's a pandemic or whatever of the unvaccinated, and that didn't end up being true either. And the point is that he was ridiculing and admonishing people rather than actually trying to meet that man with his legitimate concerns and just say, listen, man, like, tell me, what would you need to hear from me right now? Like, what can I try and give you right now?
I mean, okay, so there's a lot of research about the best ways to actually persuade people. And the least effective thing you can do is sort of what Fauci did there, which is throw a bunch of statistics at them, beat them over the head with like, well, actually, it was blah, 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 blah. The best thing you can do is engage in a conversation and ask them some questions that maybe allow them to themselves question some of the assumptions that they had made. Now, look, I think it's entirely possible that this man was not persuadable. He clearly was like, very invested. And that exchange, like I said, goes on for a long time. He's very invested in his view of the vaccine, which wasn't accurate. But to me, what it reminded me of was the fact that especially early in the vaccination campaigns, there was a media narrative that the only people who were vaccine hesitant were basically like crank right-wing Republicans.
Like white Republicans.
And that was not true.
It
wasn't true at all. And so I'm glad that Fauci actually went out and talked to some people that didn't fit the narrative that was being sold. But, it makes a lot of sense that the people who have been screwed over the most in modern history, in past history, in further back history by American society and by specifically the medical establishment in a lot of instances, yeah, they're going to be skeptical. That is a natural reaction to their experience and the history of what they have suffered in this country. So I think it was a real reminder of that time period and how much we were kind of gaslit about where vaccine hesitancy was coming from and what it was all about, when in reality it was a much more complex and multifaceted picture. And the other thing that it reminded me of, which is just like pretty surface level, is there's oftentimes an attempt to paint the quote unquote Black community as one single monolith that holds one single set of views. And I think if you watch this clip in its entirety, it's very clear that you cannot reduce any demographic group of people to a single monolith. People are complex and they hold a wide variety of views within any demographic.
It turns out Black people are just like the rest of us, individuals who think
Who could have known?
Shocker. I know. It's actually racist to think the otherwise, but whatever.
Of course.
I'm sure that point has been made a million times. My major takeaway from that was, number one, Fauci is the least effective science communicator of all time, even though, quote, he is literally the science, as he dubbed himself. And two, which is a core tenet of this show, is I trust regular people, man. You know, these people are out there. I'm going to presume that they work very hard, that, you know, necessarily that life has been tough in some cases, especially in that neighborhood. And guess what? Those people are often the best at sussing out information for themselves. And they can legitimately ask that question. And I actually thought it was really outrageous the way that he lied to her about preventing transmission and all of that and trying to guilt trip this mother into trying to protect her children when the information that she presented was fundamentally accurate as to what she wanted to do. Also, it's not like she wasn't COVID unsafe. She was wearing a mask at the time.
Yeah.
I don't know if everybody noticed that. So it's not like she didn't care about protecting her kids. She was, it turned out, what we knew about masks and all that, but I guess to the best of her knowledge, what she thought she was doing best for protecting herself and protecting her family. And at the end of the day, like, this is America. And it also underscores, I think I did a monologue about this with Don Lemon and with others, where he was calling out like unvaccinated whites and how they should be banned from society and all that. And I was like, here you have like one of the top Black people in news who's basically advocating for poor Blacks in New York City and throughout the rest of America to not be able to enter a public space. That's crazy.
To be kicked out. There was like a conversation about kicking people out of school.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, listen, to go back to that first exchange with the guy who was very hard against the vaccine. I mean, some of what he said was not correct, no doubt about it. But it was also interesting to hear how he was consuming the information that was available to him. And, one of the things that made him really skeptical was there were a bunch of these incentive programs that were like, oh, we'll pay you, which I at the time thought, okay, well, maybe that's a reasonable idea.
I kind of thought the same thing.
But clearly, at least for some percentage, this was taken of a sign of like, oh, you're going to pay. Then there must really be something else going on here if you're willing to pay me for it. And that's, again, because there's this deep mistrust. And by the way, to bring this back around to Fauci, and I think that guy mentioned some of this or at least alluded to it as well. We know that at the beginning of this crisis, Fauci he admitted to lying to the American people about masks and about herd immunity. So if that's your starting point of like out of the gates on one of the most important questions of like, should you mask or should you not mask, you're going to lie to us about what you actually think and what the science and research to that point actually says, well then, yeah, that's going to degrade our trust then down the road when you're asking us to take these other steps.
To me, it also just exposes that I've met a lot of people who are unvaccinated. I've met a lot of people who refuse to get the vaccine. And the number one thing that they cite to me every single time is the pharmaceutical profit incentive. Can you blame them? I absolutely cannot. And that is something which, in retrospect, and I mean, we certainly said it at the time, but also any injection of money into this process corrupted it in the minds of the skeptical from day one. You cannot but look at the outrageous profits of Pfizer and of Moderna, of their changing their tune from the original vax to then the boosters to now continual boosters, and not say, hey, you're making a ton of money off this thing. You are also literally exempt by the U.S. government over liability. And so it's like you exempt the liability, but you get to keep the profit. So it's like, well, so again, it's the literal meme of socialize the risk and privatize the profit. I think that was the original sin
Yeah.
from the beginning. I personally think there would have been much higher vaccine uptick, A, if they were way more honest about the data, and B, if they had taken money out from the process in the first place, because that's one of the first things he cites too about the process, the opaqueness. That's something I learned. I have learned so much from John Abramson, who we had here on the show, about the actual process through which these drugs get greenlit, through with the flu shot. So much of this stuff that, my own skepticism is skyrocketed about the entire medical system through this. And I don't think I'm alone. And a lot of it does come back to money.
I think you're right to pinpoint the profit motive, because even if we zoom out from this particular incident, et cetera, it's no accident that the U.S. has a larger percentage of vaccine hesitant people than other developed nations that have universal health care, where you don't have the profit motive at the core of every single interaction anyone ever has with our medical system. Whether it is obtaining health insurance, whether it's trying to get the, drugs that they've been prescribed, or anything else. Yeah, guess what? When your experience with the medical system is these people are just trying to price gouge me at every single point of interaction, that's going to fuel some skepticism and some hesitancy. So, I think in this particular instance, going with a for-profit approach to vaccine development, I do think that was a mistake. But it is not just a mistake, but a tragedy and a real crime against, the people of America, that we are the only healthcare system in the world that operates in the way that we do, where it is about profit and not ultimately about health outcomes. So this is what you end up with, and it is sad.
Right. Yeah, Fauci, the people who all supported this strategy of the privatized vaccine and all of that, you people are the ones who are responsible for this. It's not on those individuals for asking questions.
Hey guys, ready or not, 2024 is fully upon us now, and Saagar and I have been brainstorming ways that we can really up our game for this critical election.
Yeah, we rely on our premium subs to expand our coverage, to add staff, to upgrade the studio. We just want to give you the best independent coverage of this election, which is possible. So if you can help us out, become a premium subscriber today, breakingpoints.com, or the link is down here in the description video. It really means the world to us, and if you like what we're all about, this is the best possible way to keep us 100% independent, working only for you.